So the first module I want to work on after getting my sprites animating is to add in the health bar that shows the current health of both the player and the enemy. So we'll take a look at that. And we're going to have to make a change. I forgot that processing actually has reserved left, right, up, and down as keywords, and that they actually registers, so we don't have to use key codes as part of it. We can just use those. And that's going to affect us later on when we're trying to align text. Because by using left, right, up, and down in this capacity, then when I try and say align text left, it's not going to work, or align text right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am just going to update all of these with the letter P. So this is just something because I sometimes forget that processing has some things built into it, and that does affect the code, where if we're working in, say, pure JavaScript, where it's not already baked into the language, then it's a non-issue. But because our text alignment and all these other things are part of it, so I've changed all the instances both in the keyboard section inside my main setup. Now I just need to go into the player class and change my left and right and up and down values. So I decided just to put a P in front of it because it's player left, player right. So because I'm using these values for the player, it makes sense to do this. So now that I've done that, I'll just do a quick test of my project and run it, and we'll see that it is still animating and moving correctly. So that's good. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add in the health bar. And adding in the health bar for both the player and for the enemy is going to be pretty much the same. So we do need to create two new variables to go with this. We need a health variable, and then we'll want to store what is our maximum health. So when we reset it, we can just reset to max health. I don't have to worry about, oh, I set the health at 100. Maybe I need 200 health or 500 health. And I would have to then go and look in the code and change it in more than one place, so that would be problematic. So for this, we are going to use floats on it, and I will then have, and we're using float because we're going to be having to do some math as we apply damage to the player, and then we're going to have to take this value and multiply it, because that's how we're able to display it inside the character, or in this case I'll put it a little red bar above it. So health, we do max health first, and the reason I do that, we'll just choose 100 as our starting value, because then I can say health is equal to max health. So that makes it really easy. So we assign the max value first, and then we say health is equal to that max health. So now what we want to do is figure out how can we show this on screen. So what we want to do is we want to show a health percentage, and we want to know what is the percentage of our health remaining versus the total health. Well, that percentage is just going to be simply our current health divided by our maximum health. If our current health is maxed out, so it's 100 divided by 100, that gives me 100%, or 1, and then we can multiply that by the size of the bar we're looking at, so we can adjust that bar as we're making it happen. So to do that, this is all going to happen inside of our display. Now, if you want to leave this rectangle, which shows the kind of the hitbox area, the active area for your sprite, you can certainly leave that. If you don't care anymore, you can delete those lines of code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle to be the background of my health bar, and then I'm going to draw a second rectangle that sits inside of it, and the one that sits inside I will make it red, and then the one that's behind it I'll make that one dark gray. I mean, you could choose whatever color you want. You know, you could make health, you know, your good health green, and you know the background color red, so that you start seeing more red, less green. I mean, it's all up to you as to how you want to do this. So with this, I'm going to set my stroke color to white, and I'll set my stroke weight to 1, so I'll put a line around this rectangle. It frames it in. And I'm going to fill mine again with dark gray, unless I choose 50. And now to draw this rectangle, I'm going to draw it, and it will be aligned with the X value of this. And then I need to move it up from the Y so it sits above the character. So we go Y minus, and I'm going to try a number here. I'll just say let's move it up 10. And we know that our character is 32 pixels wide, but I'm just going to put down W so it draws a bar the width of the character, and I want to make it 4 pixels tall. So that allows me to have a 1 pixel stroke around it, and then I have a 2 pixel bar inside. So let's just see what this looks like. If we run this, we can see where it draws that bar. We can see how it's a darker gray than the background. It's got the white frame on it. Now if I were to say fill, if I can type fill, and I'll just fill it with red. Whoa. So 255, 0, 0, that fills it with red. And now we're going to draw a second rectangle. And now this rectangle, first I'm going to draw it, then I'm going to figure out how to kind of resize it based on my health value. So I want to move it over 1, X plus 1, so it moves it over. And then we'll go Y. In this case, I don't want to go the same height, I want to come down 1. So we did Y minus 10, this time I'll do Y minus 9. And now, first let's just try this, W minus 2, because we're offsetting by the size of the stroke. And finally, the size of my box, I will just do 2. Now let's see what this looks like. So we can see, okay, now it draws that red inside. Now, for this second one, what I'm going to do is say no stroke, because the stroke is getting kind of extra fat. Now if we do that, you can see how it's thin. So it doesn't put, I don't want the stroke on the red one, I only want the stroke on the black one. So now, it's not Y or width minus 2, because we did move it over 1, so it's actually a width short of 1, because I'm noticing a 1 black pixel right there at the edge. Let's try it again. Again, test your code. Perfect. So now that's showing up. But I don't really want to draw it this size. What I want to do is I want to take and draw it as, I want to show the percentage of my current health divided by my maximum health. So I'm just going to make an extra variable here just for clarity. So we'll call it float, because max health and health are both float, so we'll make this one float as well, and we'll call this one HP, health percentage, or you could call it hit points if you're a gamer and you're used to thinking in that context. And I'll just take health and I will divide it by my max health. So that now gives me a percentage. And now what I can do is I can take that percentage, HP, and I can multiply it by this value. Now if we were to run this, it should look identical, no change. But now if I were to just put something in here just temporarily and say health equals 50 and run this, what we'll see is it now shows that that bar is smaller. So it has now shrunk it down. So we don't want to hard code our player's health at half. That would be bad. But what we do want to do is we want to now, when we have the collision happen, so when, let's see, we don't have the player and enemy intersecting yet, so we're going to have to do that, and then we're going to have to figure out, when that happens, how we want to deal with it. We're also going to, because we have the collision between the projectile and the enemy, what we can do, let's see, I'm trying to remember what impact did. So when we shoot them, it moves to a new location. Now, instead of that, what we can do is we can subtract their health, and then if they lose too much health, we can just reset them. So we reset their health and move it the same way that if the player loses too much health, we'll reset the player and the enemy and do that. So we'll make it kind of just a simple, let's see, and okay, I'm trying to remember. So we are able to shoot, but I can only shoot in the 4 cardinal directions right now. We are going to modify that so we can shoot in all directions to make our game more versatile. But right now, we can see that we are now displaying the health of our player. I'm going to put the exact same stuff here. So I'm going to grab this exact same code, and I'm going to then put this inside the enemy. So we'll go over onto the enemy, go into display, right before copy, I'll paste that in. And now we'll see that that fails here because health does not exist yet for the enemy. So let's go and grab that too. So we'll grab this, copy, and then finally, let's go grab these 2 health lines. And I'll just put it down here. Now, one thing that is going to happen as we build out this project, our code isn't necessarily going to be the most organized or compact, because we're just going to keep adding. So when we add to setup, when we add to draw, when we add to our classes, we'll just keep adding it at the end so we can find it unless the code requires us to do something different. But that's how we're going to work with it. So the enemy has max health, player has max health. I'm going to change this impact here because we're going to want some version of reset later. I'll just reset them to a new location and then say health equal to max health. Now what we're going to do with the player is create a function for the player as well. Void reset, because we're going to need these resets, especially as we build out a full state-based system for our project. So currently, we'll just return, when the player does die, we'll just return them to the middle of the screen, and then just health equal to max health. So now we have resets built in for each one. Now impact is failing here. When that happens, what we don't want to do is we don't want to reset it right away. Instead, what we can do is go e.health minus equals, minus equals, we'll just put a number in like 20. So our projectiles are going to do 20. So if our health is 100, it'll take 5 hits to destroy 1 enemy. So you can give the enemies different health or make your projectiles more or less powerful depending on how you want to do your math. But it's going to be up to you. Just going to delete that commented code. We don't really need it anymore, and it's just taking up space. So we do need another rectangle intersect. We have the projectile hitting the enemy here. And as you can see, that's the only kind of intersection that we have. And now what we can do is change this to player. So when the player and enemy intersect, or the projectile and enemy intersect. So this allows the player to shoot the enemy. And at the end of our draw function here, what we can do is we can add in an if and say if e dot health is less than equal to 0, e dot reset. So that now resets it. Now we can do the same thing for the player as well, even though we don't have a way to damage the player yet, but we will if p.health is less than equal to 0, p.reset. So we've added that in kind of at the end of our draw section. At some point we might have to move these around, and that's part of the refactoring of code that we will need to do periodically as we work on our project. So what we can do, we have the player and the enemy, and a good practice, and we will need to do this when we add in the camera, so that we have a kind of our game world, the whole big part, and then we have the smaller section that we're looking at, our camera view. We have to separate our updates and displays. So we do all of our updating information, and then we finish with our displays. So then we move those down. So we could work on doing that now. We're going to just leave it for the time being because we're just going to try and keep our code a little bit, we don't want to do too many changes too quick on it. But what I can say is if tangle intersect p.e, so if, and it's red because I forgot the second parentheses there, because we have the p.e in parentheses, and then we need to close out our if statement. And then this is p.health minus equals, well, we'll just say 5. Probably don't want to make that a really big number, because otherwise when they touch us, the health goes down really, really fast. Okay, so let's move up here. We can see we both have health bars. Now if I shoot, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom. Now let's see the player. Wow. Okay, 5 might be too quick. So let's even just shorten that down to 1. Let's see what happens there. Okay, 1, 2, something like that. Seems like it might be our magic number, so we'll have to kind of play with that until we figure out what makes the most sense as we work with that. But we're now able to adjust the amount the player loses health, the amount the enemy loses health, and display that visually on screen so we can see. So now I lost health, and currently in our game we have no way to get back health. So we will need to, wow, my health is really low. Looks like the player's health is super, super low. So we're off to a good start. So good luck and happy coding.